If a small flock of cartoon bluebirds didn't help you get dressed this morning, that just means you haven't yet listened to Fine Tuning with Jim Hill and Drew Taylor. No, the black dress slacks, please. Thank you. And now, Jim Hill.
Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Jim Hill, and there is so much animation news that has gone on since our last podcast. Drew, we got, 5 minutes before you have to head out for your next junket?
I mean, it's crazy, Jim. It's the summer movie season is in full swing, and I'm swinging to catch up with it.
The film to catch right now is Incredibles 2, which I just checked before we got started here. Box Office Mojo lists through Wednesday of this week, and as of Wednesday this week, Incredibles has pulled in $516.2 million domestic, which makes it the top grossing animated film of all time, or at least domestically, right?
Yeah, not adjusted for inflation. It'll be interesting to see what it does internationally.
I doubled back and checked on how the original Incredibles did back in November of 2004. That made $261.4 million domestic. So the sequel, 14 years later, has doubled the domestic take, or damn near. Where overseas it made $371.5 million. So if you follow that pattern, that it does roughly 1 1/3 of the business, it's looking like Incredibles could potentially surpass Pixar's other biggest worldwide hits, and that was Finding Dory, which was $1.02 billion. The big one to beat would be Toy Story 3, which is $1.06 billion.
And you think it's going to do it?
I was talking with folks at the studio, and they were actually initially concerned, especially after Solo. There was a fear that Infinity War had sucked all of the air out of the room, and oh my God, what's going to happen to Incredibles 2? Oh my God, what's going to happen with Ant-Man and the Wasp? And it turns out nothing. They all did well. So, it was Solo that was kind of the misfire. And there is kind of a concern, because superhero movies either do ridiculously well overseas or not well at all. What's your take? Do you think Incredibles will do well overseas?
I think so. I mean, it looks like it's a little bit slower probably than they wanted it to, but I mean, it still has to open in so many markets as well. So I think it's going to keep going, and it'll be interesting to see where it ends up at the end of the summer once every child has seen it.
I remember when the first film came out in 2004, and this was well before the launch of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So here was this superhero family, and everyone loved them. And so, of course, the Disney parks wanted to leap on them and get them into ride shows and attractions. And for various reasons, that didn't happen. But there was a lot of stuff developed. Here we are, sequels hit. It's doing incredibly well stateside, and especially in Florida, where Disney is kind of handcuffed by the master licensing agreement with Universal. It's like, ooh, they really like The Incredibles. We could bring those into the park. The folks who are working on Phase 3 of Disney Hollywood Studios expansion, what would replace Launch Bay and be built on the site of the Magic of Disney Animation Tour, this is not going to notice. They're kind of reaching back into the draw and pulling out all of the incredible stuff. But you actually, on the other hand, have actually gotten to experience an Incredible-based attraction because you went to the Pixar Pier Media Days, didn't you?
Yes, I was invited thanks to our good friends at Disneyland and got to ride the Incredicoaster, which is really amazing, and experience the whole new Pixar Pier land. And if the response to that section of Disney's California Adventure is any indication, I think that The Incredibles have a long life in the theme park space, because the way that they were able to interject this story into California Screamin', which was just a seaside amusement park. I mean, that ride goes back to what the development of the Boardwalk standalone complex, right?
Yep.
And then it was a part of Disney's America, and now it's a California Adventure. But I mean, I cannot wait for you to ride it. I know how much you love the Guardians of the Galaxy re-theme of Tower of Terror. It's sort of the same thing, where you have great IP, a lot of story, and it is just the most fun. It's so great.
Now, you wrote the two earlier iterations of California Screamin', right? And, there was the opening day version, and then the sort of updated version that had Neil Patrick Harris as the voice of Launch and the Countdown.
Yes, and maybe the best part of the Incredicoaster is that horrible music is gone.
Oh.
That kind of rinky-dinky seaside music. It's got a brand new piece of music from Michael Giacchino, who did the score for Incredibles and Incredibles 2. All of the voice cast is back, too, so it's really funny to hear Holly Hunter on a theme park attraction. We got to go the next time you're out here, because it's just a blast.
Okay. When you sit on the outside of it, I mean, for example, Edna Mode as a walk-around character, did you get to see her when you were at the park?
Yes. Yeah, I took pictures with her. We'll have to put it in our show notes. I thought she was going to talk sort of like the Kylo Ren character and stuff like that, but she does not talk. She just sort of walks around. But it's a great sculpt of the headpiece, and it's pretty fun.
Okay. Based on the lines, the most popular new attraction as part of Pixar Pier isn't even a ride. It's this Jack Jack cookie Num Nums.
Yeah, I tried the chocolate chip cookie.
Okay.
But what people are really freaking out about is the gluten-free cookie, which my fiance, Katie, who you know and love, has celiac. So she was over the moon about this cookie.
All right. It's got blackberry jam inside? Or what is this?
Yes. It sort of looks like the logo almost, where it's got the little circle in the middle, and that's where the blackberry jam is. And it was a big hit. And I am so proud of Disney for catering to that gluten-free clientele, because I tell you, the restaurants and everyone are so accommodating, and it's a really, people don't think about the Disney parks as a place to go for people with a food allergy, but it's true, and it's amazing. So kudos to them.
Now, you got to do the full ride. So you did the Lamp Lounge, which was the sort of reimagining of Avalon Cove as sort of like the ultimate Pixar insider eatery.
Yes, we even saw the secret room, which I don't know if you have heard about that.
Oh, okay. Well, no.
There's a secret room sort of going where the cast members only area is. You have to punch in a secret code, spin a door, and it opens up onto this private little room with drawings from all of the Pixar animators on the wall. And best part of all, it has a private kind of balcony that overlooks the launch of the Incredicoaster, which, as you've seen from the videos, I'm sure, has this dazzling new dash kind of running effect when you take off, where it looks like your ride vehicle is kicking up water. It's really amazing. And the best part about this room is you can just get it if just anybody can request it. So it's really neat.
Got it. Yet, of course, that's kind of a nod to the Love Lounge, the famous hidden room at Pixar up in Emeryville. Though, given what Pixar's dealing with right now, I would imagine nobody talks about the Love Lounge much anymore. Okay, so we've talked on earlier shows about the coming change out at Pixar, and as we predicted, it was Pete Docter, and kind of a surprise that Jennifer Lee ended up as the one and only at Disney, because initially you and I were hearing about like committees of 3 or that sort of thing, weren't we?
Right, yeah, we were hearing about Rich Moore, who is great. And who was the other person that they were thinking about throwing in there?
I had heard Chris Buck, but again, it was Jennifer was always a part of it. Rich was always a part of it. I had heard Byron Howard at one point.
Okay, that makes sense.
Whoever has made $1 billion earner at the studio, step up.
Right.
It was kind of the same thing up at Pixar. It was, going to be Andrew Stanton and Pete and I'm blanking the third one. I want to say Josh Cooley, but I don't think so. Anyway, no committee, just one. So we get Jennifer and we get Pete up at Pixar. And I'm sorry, I kind of feel bad for Pete now. Because, first of all, there was that wonderful quote that was out there about how I guess he's got a movie that, what did he say? I hope they let me finish it.
Right.
Never mind the fact that Pete has done some absolutely wonderful films for Pixar, which is why I just kind of feel sad that he might get, as a director, sucked out of the rotation and now have to be the sort of the go-to guy who has to fix story and, make decisions about voice casting and that sort of thing. I mean, that's when you're the head honcho of a studio, you're not really as creative. I mean, you get to fix, You get to sit in meetings and make suggestions, or you're the one who has to go, no, we can't make this movie and all that. But there was a series of stories last week where somebody had flashed on the notion that Pete was the first openly Christian director at Pixar. And I just read these stories and went, oh, can we not put that on the pile as well? This poor guy has to follow John Lasseter. And that's kind of a two-pronged thing that he has to do, because John, for all of his picadillos and that sort of thing, made some amazing movies, helped make CG into a thing. If you look back at the history of the Toy Stories, it was a very big deal to try to do the first feature-length film entirely in CG, and we're suddenly back in Snow White country. People can't stare at CG for 90 minutes. Their heads will explode.
Right.
The characters won't be warm because the surfaces are so hard and all that. So he's got to follow that and all those amazing films that were produced at Pixar under John's reign. But at the same time, he's got to clean up the mess. So it's living up to the films that John made, plus addressing the cultural issues. And now he's going to be the guy he's an openly Christian director. It's like, oh, come on. Just let the poor guy make movies. Don't put, because Pete Docter is making, movies, they're all going to be Christian friendly or things that Christians can embrace, because, well, you were pointing out that they've already been doing that.
Oh, yeah. If you go back to the release of WALL-E, Andrew Stanton, who is a pretty outspoken Christian, talked pretty openly about the sort of biblical overtones of WALL-E. Obviously, there's a character named Eve. It certainly explains why two sexless robots were given gender tags in that movie. And I guess apparently, one of the story artists brought up the fact that Eve carrying the green shrubbery looked like the dove of peace. And so that was something that was amplified during production as well, to reinforce these kind of Christian undertones, or overtones as they were.
Wow.
Yeah, he has been pretty outspoken. When all this stuff came up about Pete being the first openly Christian Pixar director, I just said, did we all forget about WALL-E? Maybe we did. This is not something new, and so maybe Andrew can help him kind of steer around potential controversy, just to make the best movies.
Now, to sort of double back to what we were talking previously about The Incredibles and Disney Hollywood Studios and that sort of thing, because we've just seen Toy Story Land open up. Between our last time we recorded, we also learned that Disney is bringing a Cars-themed attraction to Disney Hollywood Studios. So only the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy, I believe it is, but there is no racing in the Racing Academy. This is that black box building that they built at the Disney Hollywood Studios 2 and 3 years ago. They had a sort of a villains meet and greet in there for the longest time. This is where basically you're going to go and have an opportunity to interact with the full-size versions of Lightning McQueen, Mater, Cruz Ramirez. You go in, there's a little show, and then you can get your picture taken with these characters, interact with them, that sort of thing, and then they cycle the next group in. But this is the farthest point for the Pixar characters away from Toy Story Land, and the eventual plan is that there will be a walkway that will take you from Toy Story Land that will connect through to Sunset Boulevard. And the entire length of this thing will be Pixar IP. Bob Chapek, very excited about Incredibles 2, so it's like, pull out all of the Incredibles stuff that we didn't do back in 2004. The people at Pixar who are now working on the Monsters, Inc. TV series, which is supposed to debut in 2019 on the Disney streaming service, they've been like, whoa, we're doing really cool stuff, and we have that Monsters coaster, and don't go fully Incredibles on us. We were supposed to also go into the studios at one point. In fact, where Toy Story Mania is right now, or Midway Mania, was with the infamous Toy Story Doors coaster ride, was supposed to go back in 2008.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of a fluid situation, because with Disney, especially with Bob Chapek in charge of parks, Bob constantly looks at the grosses, constantly looks at merch sales, and that really drives what he signs off on going into the park. So that's why we're seeing a lot of Frozen stuff, why, every time you turn around, there's another Toy Story Land opening at, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Paris, the like.
Well, do we know who's doing the animation for the Monsters, Inc. show?
I've been trying to get a handle on that. I hit up the usual suspects. For example, the folks who do all the wonderful work on Gravity Falls, or... speaking of which, little side note here, folks. You've already gotten a hold of the Blu-ray?
The complete series, yeah, the Blu-ray. Yeah, it comes out on July 24th from Shout Factory, and it is incredible. There's commentary on every single episode. There's a hour and a half long documentary that is really incredible and really gets into the nuts and bolts of it. Tons of behind the scenes footage, new interviews with Alex and everybody else involved in the show. It is a total love letter to that incredible series, and also very much primes you for the forthcoming graphic novel that he has written with 4 new Gravity Falls stories coming out, I think the same day as the box set. So a lot of cool Gravity Falls stuff coming out. I know we're both huge fans, so this was a thrill to get to see early.
This has literally been years in the making. What I love about this is we've just recently seen the first DuckTales set of the reboot of the series, and don't get me wrong, it's nice to have those episodes, and it's nice to have some classic episodes, but you just, when you look at that series and how much fun it is, it's just sort of like, this seems so bare bones.
Yeah, give us the whole series or whatever. I don't get it, but maybe this will open up for other series to be released on Blu-ray through third parties, because it's just crazy to me that Disney is not putting this out themselves, because I think it's going to sell 1 billion copies and the reviews are going to be huge. Alex is doing a signing at Comic-Con next weekend of the set at the Shout Factory booth. It's really exciting. But the other, we forgot to talk about this off air too, is maybe the biggest animation news that happened when we were off was that Toon Studio shut down.
Yeah, and you and I were both at the D23 Expo last August, and that's when they ran the teaser for the unnamed Planes Jet sequel, whatever the hell it was.
Right.
I think you and I both talked about there was one more Tinkerbell movie coming.
Oh, yeah.
You and I both know that Toon Studios and Disney Television Animation share the same campus.
Yes, I would steal snacks from there. When I worked at DCPI, they had great candy, so I'm obviously there's something personal about this closure that hits me hard, but and they share the big cafeteria too over there. So, do you think that this was a mistake given how much content they're going to need for the streaming service and other areas of the company, and how is this connected to what will happen with Blue Sky when Disney finally acquires Fox?
That's what I was asking when I was calling friends of the company. It just seems the timing of this just seemed a trifle suspect. I mean, the very thing you're talking about. Here's Disney racking up its digital streaming service. In fact, I wanted to talk about that. Did you see the announcement just yesterday about Togo?
Yes, with Willem Dafoe.
But here's the thing, okay? Togo, for those of you who don't know, it's actually sort of a story that, if you've seen the DreamWorks that did this, Balto?
Oh, yes, I remember Balto. It was Universal. Was it Amblin?
Amblin, there we go, Amblin.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amblin did the story of Balto, but it turns out Balto wasn't the only dog that was carrying, serum during the 1925 race to Nome. It turns out that there was another dog, Togo, who actually went the really dangerous route, and Disney actually acquired this story back in October of 2015 and was developing it as a live-action feature release for Walt Disney Pictures. They kept working on it, but they never got to the point where they were going to turn the key, where once they got the digital streaming service up and running and realized, well, we're going to need Disney-esque films to put on Disney's digital streaming service. It's like, well, let's do Togo.
Right.
So they've cast William Dafoe. They'll start shooting it later this year. It will be available when the service goes live in 2019. So if you have Jets that far along in story, if you have your Tinkerbell movie that you were going to do at Disney Toon Studios that far along, why wouldn't you at least press forward with production of those. It's so you have them at least for this digital streaming service. I mean, you and I both know that one of the factors that came into play here is what's happened in regard to DVD and Blu-ray sales. That to circle back to the Gravity Falls super deluxe set that Shout Factory's put out, when I've talked with people on Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment, is like there is in fact a market out there for a super deluxe set of this or that. But, the hard reality is, we would only move 300,000, 400,000 units. And the Disney company kind of considers that chump change.
Right.
Yeah, that's the money we leave on the dresser. The big bills go in the wallet. I don't want to make pennies on something that's really, really good. I want to make billions. So that's kind of where we are. But again, I really, 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 really want this Gravity Falls set to hit because poor Mr. Peel, who's trying to get that Gargoyles film up off of the ground. It would be so much easier to make a Gargoyles movie if he could point to, well, they actually buy the Gargoyles movies, so, the DVD, so let's go make that movie. But
yeah, that would be amazing, because I think even when Disney was putting out, like, season sets of some of the Disney afternoon shows, I don't think any of them are complete.
No.
They would sort of taper off, and so... But are you confident that Blue Sky will be a part of the Disney portfolio after the Fox acquisition?
If only for the Ice Age characters and films.
Okay.
Because that's actually the highest grossing animated film series of all time. And I can't see Disney walking away from that IP. In fact, it's been so funny talking with folks at Disney, because again, they can't really talk about what they want to do post-Fox acquisition, because, of course, here's Comcast coming in making its bid, which forced Disney to jump its bid to $71 billion with a huge cash component, and now the battle over Sky that's going on.
Right.
I was talking with somebody at the studio, and they were like, yeah, we've kind of had conversations about Anastasia. Well, she is a princess, and we are buying it, so does that make her a Disney princess? And it's like... Well, no, but, we really feel that between the Anastasia Broadway show and all that there's a lot of money to be made off of rebranding that character as a Disney property.
Oh, yeah. People love that character, too.
Yeah, and likewise with Manny and Sid and Diego, the characters from Ice Age. It's such a gimme to bring those characters into the parks. But nobody at Disney, it's like, until we actually finish this deal. And right now, there's a belief, because Comcast seems to have really laser focused in on Sky, that the hope is that you no longer want Fox, or at least you no longer want the film assets of Fox. So we'll get those, and that'll help with the streaming service. But there's still this certain level of terror that Comcast has supposedly been meeting with outside investors and some people with some fairly deep pockets to line up additional financing. And there's a fear out ahead of that shareholders meeting that Comcast is going to be the spoiler. It's just a week or 10 days before that meeting, they're going to announce another bid, and, they're going to have to kick the can down the road. Anybody you talk with at Disney, they're like, we want to get moving on this, but we can't do anything until the shareholders have voted and it's accepted and we go. I didn't get the confirmation I was looking for in regard to Toon Studios, that this was a direct result of. So many people at the company just view it as short-sighted that at the very least there were these two projects that were ready to go and that they could have easily found a home at the Disney digital streaming service. To just shut it down and to let that talent walk out the door is just kind of sad.
Yeah, there were a lot of great people working over there, and the history of that building is really unique, too, because a lot of Zootopia and Wreck-It Ralph 2 were developed there while the animation campus in Burbank was being renovated, so I feel like it would be a shame to let that space go empty, too, because it's so kind of historic in the company.
Well, never mind that. Wasn't that one of the satellite buildings that Imagineering moved into when they were ramping up to build Walt Disney World in 69, 70, 71? And didn't that used to be a casket factory? Is that
what it was?
I got to do my research. Tell you what, we'll do a proper show about the history of Disney too. Which, by the way, I know it's really popular to sort of bash cheapwuls instead of sequels.
Oh, right.
But
yeah.
no, the folks at Disney Toon Studio, particularly the last 10 years or so, did such great work on projects that you sort of sat outside of and went, I really? Another fairies film? But
Right.
they did great work. They really did. And they're a genuinely talented bunch. And I'm just kind of sorry to see them walk out the door.
Well, hopefully they'll have different roles in the company elsewhere because they were great and they should not be let go.
Speaking of things that are being let loose, so to speak, Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation rolling out in the theaters. And you got to sit down with Kennedy to talk about this movie.
Yeah, well, the movie's great. You haven't seen it yet?
I've not seen it yet. And before you talk about it, we have to do a commercial break. So
all right,
just hang on a sec, folks.
I'll hold that thought.
We'll be back with Summer Vacation. And we're back. Okay, this is our third Hotel Transylvania film. We have the first one. It was kind of a troubled production. I mean, I remember back when the original conceit of this movie was that Frankenstein had a hotel and Dracula had a hotel and they were battling for customers, and there were a lot of really bad ideas.
Oh, yeah. I think Gendy was the sixth filmmaker on the Hotel Transylvania concept. And I guess he just sort of slid over to it after an original idea that he was working on wasn't panning out in time. He'd said, well, let me take a crack at this. And it ended up being huge. I mean, this is a huge franchise, and this new one is the best one, I think. It's certainly the most Gendy. I don't know if you remember the last time, when Hotel Transylvania 2 came out in September of 2015, there were some very public sort of disagreements about his relationship with Robert Smigel.
Yeah.
Who's one of the co-writers. And then that was sort of amplified by the Sony hack, which uncovered some emails about that situation, which were pretty unpleasant.
I can't tell you who told me these stories, but basically on the first Hotel Transylvania, didn't Kennedy sort of trick Adam Sandler into giving the performance that made the film so effective? I mean, they just kept Adam in the booth until, he would just sort of get tired and underpowered, and that then became the sincere Drac. I mean, Kennedy was able to sort of stitch together this wonderful performance for Hotel Transylvania, or at least the first one, and then, of course, the problem with number 2 was that suddenly everyone realized, wow, we can make money off of this thing. And both Adam and Mr. Smigel got that much more hands-on. And as those emails pointed out, got really, really ugly.
Yeah. I got to sit down with him for 20 minutes, and our conversation covered the gamut of his career, because in the press he's saying, oh, I went on this cruise and that's what inspired me to come back for Hotel Transylvania 3, because if you look at the press for the second one, he was like, there's gonna be another one, I'm not gonna be involved with it. So him coming back was a big surprise. And so I said, listen, tell me really why you're coming back. And he basically told me because he could write it himself. He did not want anything from Smigel or Sandler. He wrote it with Michael McCullers, who's become a huge screenwriter in terms of animation. I think he's had animated movies out from every major studio besides Disney in the last few years. But he said that he was able to write sort of for the animation. His example was, instead of Dracula falling in love and saying, I'm in love, they do a 2-minute dance sequence in Hotel Transylvania 3. And so that's the kind of difference. But I got a lot of great stories from him, which I had never heard before, including why he left Lucasfilm Animation, because he was going to be installed as the kind of John Lasseter figure at Lucasfilm Animation. And so I finally found out what happened there, which was kind of fascinating.
Oh, please share.
He wanted to do features. He wanted to do original features for Lucasfilm. Jim Morris, who's now at Pixar, was leading Lucasfilm Animation at the time. And they had gone through negotiations, and his wife was in San Francisco looking at houses, and they were at their last meeting. It was a breakfast meeting. And George sat down at the table and said, I don't want to do movies. The future is TV. And he said at that point, he sort of flash forwarded through the next 20 years of his life, realized he would only be working on Star Wars movies, and said, I'm not into that idea. And he said that Jim Morris looked just as shocked as he was at this meeting. And the project that he was developing, which I found out was a kind of action-adventure Viking movie, this was before How to Train Your Dragon, died at that breakfast table, which is just heartbreaking.
Speaking of interesting conversations with powerful moguls, can you talk about Mr. Feige?
Oh, yes. He was involved in an animation studio that was called Viking Animation, I think, when it closed. He said, basically, I'm running out of money. I've got to go get a job. So he meets with Marvel, and he meets with Kevin Feige, and he says, what if we did for Marvel what we did for Star Wars with Clone Wars? And he said, during this meeting, Feige actually brought up the idea of Genndy directing the first Thor, which I had never heard in my entire life, and I don't think you had either.
No, but if you think about what he did, those Clone War shorts, oh my God.
Yeah, it's amazing. But what's maybe even more fascinating is that Feige at this meeting suggested that he meet with Jon Favreau, who supposedly looked to Clone Wars and to Samurai Jack when making Iron Man.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, and had Genndy came in, he shot second unit on Iron Man 2, and he also blocked that incredible sequence at the end of the movie in the Japanese garden. He blocked it, he edited it together, he did the storyboards, and he said at an early version of the movie, they had recut the way that he'd done, because he said, a lot of what makes my stuff work is the way it's cut. It was completely changed, and then he gave the notes to Favreau. He said, I don't think this works as well. And then when he saw the final movie, they had gone back and replicated exactly what Genndy had done, almost shot for shot.
Branagh, in the end, did a great job and set up the character and set up the world, but a Genndy Thor, oh my God.
Yeah, it would have been really something.
To circle back to Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation. So again, I loved the first film, absolutely loved the first film. I felt that 2 was kind of a step down.
Yeah.
But, I think part of that was the behind-the-scenes stories and the fights for control. And because, of course, now suddenly this is a thing that makes money. And the whole notion of you had Mel Brooks' Nosferatu. It's like, why didn't that pay off? I have to say, in a weird sort of way, I'm actually happy to hear what you're saying about Summer Vacation, because in a lot of ways it was sort of like what happened last year with Cars 3. I'm one of those people who, Cars 2, I love the original Cars 1. Cars 2 left such a bad taste in my mouth because it was so busy and tried to be so many things, and I was one of those people who went back into the third film with like, ugh. And that was such a nice surprise. It was such a sweet little movie. And so is this the same situation we're dealing with 3? Is it kind of a return to the one?
Yeah, I think it's actually maybe the best one.
Really?
I mean, I think you'll appreciate it from an animation standpoint. The ending in particular is incredibly kind of oversized and will remind you of Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory and some of the other things that he's done. And it's just really funny and really smart and well done. And I think everyone's going to like it. And I think it's good that he kind of goes off on this note, because he said that his next project for Sony is a new original action adventure film. He said it's like a computer animated Samurai Jack. And so that is very exciting to hear. I think this is the last time he's checked into the hotel, but it's a good one.
Okay, well, for those of us who are still kind of mourning that we didn't get his Popeye, I'm just seeing the ads make me happy, from the family walking down the deck wearing these swim fins. I don't know why that makes me laugh, but that makes me laugh.
It's because we've both been on a Disney cruise, and
there we go.
We know how real that is.
No, but but again, but cutting a trailer, cutting a TV commercial, that sort of thing, is an art form. So, which makes me now reluctant to kind of pivot to talk about Wonder Park. That we just had the teaser trailer for this long in development Paramount Pictures animated feature. Just up until 6 months ago, this was called Amusement Park. But what was it? In January of this year, Dylan Brown, the original director of it, they say he was removed for inappropriate and wanton or unwanted contact. What do you think of this teaser?
We were talking about this earlier, but we have no idea who this movie is for. Like, it was done by the Spanish animation studio that did Planet 51. It doesn't come out until next March, I think.
And the other thing here worth noting is that there's an animated series that comes in the wake of this. Paramount's already announced that Nickelodeon's going to have a series based on this yet-to-be-released film. Watching the footage, it felt more like the introduction of a game,
right? Yeah,
rather than a story. But again, I want to be fair. I mean, I remember battling with so many people when, for example, like the initial teaser trailer came out for Frozen, and people are like, "Oh God, it's stupid snowman and the reindeer, and what is this movie about?" And rah, 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 rah. That turned out okay.
Yeah,
you always have to be careful about these things, but. Circling back to Hotel Transylvania, I mean, another sort of comment on our new media landscape. That got an animated series.
Which is pretty good.
But it's a prequel to the very first film, but Sony Pictures Animation airing on the Disney Channel.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, but that's the new landscape. You're going to have Disney pushing Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, come December. Because Marvel had a hand in producing that, and that helps push Spidey forward. But now that they've changed the release date for Mary Poppins Return, moving that up a week, it doesn't actually open on the same day now as Spider-Verse.
Oh, it does? Wow.
Yeah, so...
That's crazy.
Well, I guess the argument at Disney is that, Poppins has been testing through the roof. They were a cinema event or an industry event in Europe earlier this month where they showed them, some sequences out of Wreck-It Ralph. They showed them some Toy Story 4 footage, and they showed them an entire dance sequence musical number from Mary Poppins Returns, and the audience evidently lost its mind. So, Disney believes that this is going to be a monstrous hit in much the same way as you moved up Infinity Wars to take advantage of what you believed was going to be a big success. They're doing that with Poppins.
Well, we'll have a lot to talk about with Poppins. We can't say anything yet, but there is definitely a animation live action sequence in the movie paying homage to the original film that both Pixar and Walt Disney Animation Studios had a hand in. Get ready for that.
Okay, well, to tell you what, folks, we'll talk about that scene that may or may not feature penguins in a future episode of Fine Tuning. But for now, thanks for listening in, and on behalf of myself and Mr. Taylor, have a wonderful day.
Be sure to tune in again for another fine episode of Fine Tuning with Jim Hill and Drew Taylor.